Isn't God supposed to be a God of love? Yes. Isn't God supposed to be a God who doesn't do evil? Yes. So why did God send an evil spirit to King Saul in 1 Samuel? Hey everyone, glad you're with me today. The 7th and 8th graders at the school that I work with, yes, we're still in that series. They have come up with a question regarding something that is said in 1 Samuel, specifically 1 Samuel 16:14. Here's what it says. Now the Spirit of the Lord had left Saul, and an evil spirit sent from the Lord began to torment him. So if God is a God of love and light, then why did he send an evil spirit to King Saul? This doesn't make a lot of sense. This is a good question. This is a very good question. It's really hard to look at verses like this where it seems that it makes God out to be this evil God. We see a similar thing happen in Exodus when Moses is talking with Pharaoh and trying to get the children of Israel to be able to leave Egypt. And Exodus says, and God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Now there are a couple of things that have really helped me in better understanding situations like this when I come to them in the Bible. First, nearly all of these occurrences that talk about God sending an evil spirit or God hardening someone's heart happen early on in the history of the children of Israel. We don't find any phrases that are like this in later Old Testament and certainly not in the New Testament at all. So this is one of our first clues. First, when Israel comes out of Egypt, they're coming out of a polytheistic environment. Polytheism is the worshiping of multiple gods. Egypt worshipped multiple gods. And so the children of Israel were coming out of this society and culture that when something bad happened, they worshipped the God that did the bad thing in order to appease that God. So instead of God revealing to the children of Israel that Satan existed, that there was an enemy against God, in order to keep them from worshiping Satan, God decides to take on all the responsibility himself in order to help them grow into their knowledge of good and evil and the great war between God and Satan. If God had told them about Satan early on, right after coming out of Egypt, they probably would have started worshiping Satan as another god in order to appease him so bad things wouldn't happen to them. We see how easily, when Moses is gone on the mountain, that they build the golden calf to worship because that's their god now. This is what they're used to. This is what they have been steeped in. Secondly, the word that is translated evil could also mean tormenting spirit. It's more about the character of the spirit than whether it's evil or good. Remember that 1 Samuel says that God removed the Spirit of the Lord. And so King Saul does not have God's Spirit anymore. And in removing the Spirit of God from King Saul, God placed the Spirit on David, who would be the king after King Saul. This means that King Saul no longer had the Spirit of God with him, and thus he was open to a lot of different influences. God's ways are sometimes mysterious, and that's okay. And we do our best to understand them. Sometimes it's hard to explain, and sometimes the reasons don't really feel like they're good enough. But ultimately, we don't always understand why God does things the way he does. Hope this helps a little bit. Thanks for joining me today. Like and subscribe if you like content like this, and we'll see you next time. We don't find any phraseology. So this means that King Saul did no longer. This means that King Saul